Hello and welcome to one more edition of What Matters Most. My name is Luisa, and today I have a very special guest, and we're going to speak about a topic that's very dear to me. We're going to speak about theater and also community theater because I've been involved with it lately. My guest is Tess Forsyth. How are you, Tess?
Hi, hello.
Thank you for being on the show.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. It's been a while, and I moved to California not long ago, just over a year ago, and then I got involved with theater because of Phil Shack. And I came across you, and I just got fascinated by all that you do. And today's topic is really about the power of theater within the community. And what it does to the actors as well, because you're a trainer of actors, right?
Sure.
Tell us a little bit about your bio. What made you get interested in theater? Because you worked for the corporate world and you were in Silicon Valley and so forth.
Oh, I started theater very young. I had a sister who was 3 years older than me, and we would put on plays on the hearth. And she, of course, being older and much bigger than me, she had to play the leading role in everything, so I got to play the 14 supporting roles, so I would run off stage and take off a layer of clothing and run back on. And so I started as an actor sort of playwright because these are fairly improvisational, and I was good at storytelling, so I tended to lead the story. And as time went on, I began to direct and write more, but yes, it started in those. That's how it starts. It starts with let's pretend as if.
That's right.
And from there, I was the lead in productions in elementary school and whatnot, which got me sort of discovered. So by junior high and high school, I was actually touring with different theater productions. To Europe and to Japan, and during those tours, that's when I figured out I think more like a director than an actor, and so I migrated from acting toward directing and playwriting.
But it is fundamental to know how to act in order to direct because you understand all the pitfalls and the challenges of acting and so forth. So I have been watching Placer Repertory Theater, and I think I should read up a little bit of what it says on your website about your resume.
Right.
It says that Tess has an MFA in Dramatic Arts and an MS in Business Management and Leadership. Mm-hmm. This former Silicon Valley high-tech VP and critically acclaimed professional director, playwright, also plays the role of producing artistic director for Placer Repertory Theater. I mean, there's much more, but it's just so fascinating to me. The reason why I started the show is because when I watch regular TV, I don't see people diving deep into what's in people's hearts. I mean, okay, we've got the titles and you've got the accolades, you've done a lot, but what is this passion that drives you? What do you think the world needs that you're bringing?
Oh, wow. Well, I don't want to be, I wouldn't be so egotistical to think about the world that I am bringing, but more so theater being a collaborative art form, that what we as artists are able to say together, because any art form, art is a communication, right? Craft is the ability to reproduce something repeatedly and have it be nearly identical each time. And craft is involved in acting, but art is the impetus. What do we want to say to our community? What do we want to say as fellow human beings? Every work I've ever directed, every work I've ever written, deep down, if you boil it down, it's about how can we be better human beings?
Exactly.
And so sometimes you're showing awful people, and we can recognize the dark shadow side of ourselves in that awful person. I want to try to be less of that. Other times we were seeing exemplary people on stage, exemplary characters, or fantastical moments that can somehow metaphorically relate to things that we have to fight against in our own lives, and we're being shown possible paths to solve those issues. But that's what theater does. It starts the conversation. We aren't there to lecture. We're there to hold the mirror to individuals, hold the mirror to society, and say, here are these problems, and here are how these characters solve
Exactly.
it. And from that, one can talk, the next day at the water cooler in the coffee house, and think about how it relates.
Exactly. I love that. I just absolutely, and I have an interest of disclosure.
Yeah.
I think she's a goddess. So. It's very hard to introduce somebody that you think the world of,
Oh, so sweet.
and not show it to the audience. And here's why. It's because, first of all, you're a woman. There are few women in this business. I mean, the women are not portrayed accurately or fairly in society in general. You are somebody who has gone into the corporate world, and you got out of the corporate world, and now you are running something that's connecting you with a smaller area. And you live in California, Rockland, and that area does not have a lot of theater. I know you're bringing the interest in the theater there, and there are other theatrical performances there. But tell me about the power of local, because I one of the things I like to say, and I said it many times in my previous shows, is that we should think globally. When I wake up in the morning, I think about the planet Earth, and I connect to the planet Earth, and then I connect with where I am in the United States, and then I connect to my community. I live in Cool. And so tell me about the power of local. So we should think globally but act locally. That's one of my favorite quotes of all time.
So I'm going to just very briefly address a few of the points you brought up, and then go to your local request. Yes, when I started theater, there were pretty much no women directors when I started directing professionally in theater. And I will tell you, here's this wonderful horror story. I go in, and I have been directing professional theater with some groups that tour nationally and internationally, and I meet with almost all old white male board and present, and I do an excellent job of my presentation for how I would direct Grand Hotel, and I leave, and I had left my briefcase in there accidentally. So as I start to come back in, I overhear, well, she's really talented and quite brilliant, but we can't hire a woman director. She might be on her period during the show. I'm not kidding. That was said. And so that's what I had to fight against the entirety of my career. And I feel like people like myself, Brenda Wang Aoki, other professional artists and filmmakers too, we have been the icebreaker ships, that we have to smack into the ice and break it up so that other people can follow. And so, most of my career I've having to be but the glass ceiling, and especially to become a VP of a software company to this day.
Absolutely.
The Silicon Valley is not a tender environment for women. We get excited when we see all these women graduating with engineering and science degrees, and within 5 years they've left the Silicon Valley because it is hard there on women. And we won't go into that much. But anyway, so I just want to address that is true. And so that's everybody's job. That's your job. That's your job. Is to go out there, and it's just because it's hard doesn't mean it's not worthwhile, and be an icebreaker, create a path for others to follow, and so that's important. So now dealing with the idea of local. So I was doing all this national and international theater, and so shows went to the Kennedy Center, Smithsonian, that kind of thing. So and Hong Kong Performing Arts Center, that kind of thing. And but what I realized and always knew. Truly was you can do that globally all day long, and a small percentage of my show tours to San Diego rep, a very tiny percentage of San Diego is going to go see the show. There's only so many seats, first of all, even if it's sold out, and only so many people go see theater. So how many people are you affecting? Film can affect more people because it's more global, but how deep is the effect when it is not in person? And so while I've done a few little indie films, I never felt it, for me, was the medium where I could affect change. Where I have always worked is to affect changes locally. So that is why when I retired to this area and I looked around and I was offering myself volunteer my time with different community theaters, etc., I was looking for how can I make that change? How can I be? And I found there was no professional theater in the county and never had been, and I wasn't coming from a certain bar, I wasn't happy with most of the professional theater in Sacramento area. And so I thought, what if we created our own professional theater in this county that can serve this county and beyond, and then it can tour regionally to attract audiences back, bringing in out of county dollars, tourism dollars, similar to Ashland, Oregon Shakespeare Festival and other, the Puget Sound and its music scene, taking a quiet hamlet and turning it into an economic boom for the entire area. So that's what I'm doing, is another icebreaker thing.
Exactly. Connection between
Right.
the community, economic prosperity of the
Right.
community,
Exactly.
which then filters down to
Right.
culture and education and
Right.
etc.
Right, and regarding that, and that's why I've partnered with the Roseville Historical Society, the Rockland Historical Society, the Friends of the Library, these kinds of organizations, because we're about literacy, we're about engaging the local community. We tell, every year we have some play that has stories from local history that are part of the play, or are the play that we're doing, and that keeps that local relevance and tells
Absolutely.
stories. It also does healing, community healing. So we
That's a big
told
one.
these stories last year, for instance, about this really wonderful woman in Roseville who did all these wonderful things for her community of Roseville, but when she got into state legislation, she was actually passing anti-Japanese legislation and things like that. So how do you rectify that? So we look at history in context. How we heal it is by we admit it, we
Yes.
talk about it,
Yes.
and we say, okay, that was something that happened then in context, and we need to learn from that and never do this kind of thing again.
Again.
And we learn compassion about the past and for the
Right.
present and the future.
Right. Absolutely.
And so that would be
And
my spiel about
that's
local.
no, that's amazing. You're just touching upon topics that I just feel so strong.
I get so
about.
passionate, sorry.
I'm glad you do, and part of that is because as I mentioned earlier, we watch regular TV, cable news, and so forth, and we what we see is sometimes so distant. Like this happened. There's been there's global warming, of course. We got all these huge issues to solve as humanity, as human beings, and yet as a person, everybody wonders, what can I do?
Right.
What can I do
Right.
to make a change?
Yes, and I want to speak to that because there is nothing wrong with it. That's a kindness. You see a flooding happening in Louisiana, and you see the number, and so you dial or you write a check, and that's wonderful. But I think every day we need to be asking, what can I do in terms of your local community? So sometimes sending funds outside of the county, maybe if you're seeing a story about a homeless child or people who are hungry, you might want to look within. Not that you shouldn't also support globally, but for every time you ask that question at a global level, be asking it at the local level. So how can I make a difference? Now, specific to theater, how you can make a difference is get involved, right? Everything from volunteerism, taking classes, helping to promote, just being a patron. Those things are vital. Of course, you can donate, or perhaps your company can donate, and you can be an inside advocate helping us to receive sponsorship, us meaning the community theater at large, not just
Right.
Placer Rep, of course.
Absolutely. Can you tell us a little bit about Placer Repertory Theater? Because I'm currently running, or I'm the
Right.
head of the board of Placer Community Theater.
Right.
And of course, I have become so passionate about that project. But tell me about your plans and how you run it, because it is, you pay your actors. We do not pay our
Yes.
actors because we're a community theater. What are the differences?
Okay, well, I would start with the fundamental mission and goals are different from professional theater to community theater. Community theater is a social engagement, and it's about creating, it's a glue for the community to have a common experience, whether you're an audience member or whether you are in the production. You're coming together and creating something, audience and performers, and you're there for the joy, and you're there for the connection, and you're there to grow and create community, and that is a different philosophy and a different mission. Professional theater, our mission is to provide these professional performing arts and cultural events for educational charitable purposes to drive the economy. So the idea is it is an economic sector. And so no if we only had slides, but we could
we will have slides.
As an example,
have the slides.
Yeah. For example, I will send forward a slide that one of the pictures on the slide is 3 of my actors standing in these bright orange t-shirts. We sourced those t-shirts locally. I designed the logo for our Trailblazer Guides of America, this fake group that's part of this one play. And then I went and I could have bought them cheaper online. I went and I hunted down and I found this awesome local print shop that does t-shirts and mugs and things, and I worked with him and gave him so I had to pay a third more, but I'm stirring the local economy. He's got food on his table. He's going to turn around and buy gas and go to the grocery store.
Absolutely.
It stirs the economy. Me paying the actors stirs the economy.
Absolutely.
So I'm getting out of county dollars. More of our patrons are from outside the county than from within, so about 60 to, depending on the show, 60 to 80% of our ticket sales will be outside of the county, and that money then is being paid to local people who are going then and they are paying their rent and they're buying cars and they're doing things in the local economy. So I'm bringing in the out-of-county dollars.
Absolutely. It's just all interrelated, interconnected, and it always surprises me, even at home, like I say to my husband, well, I need to hire a landscaper, and he goes, we need to save money. And I go, you know what? If I pay the landscaper will pay somebody else. Somebody else will pay somebody else for another service. But if I do not pay the landscaper, then I am closing the way to progress here for the economy to keep rolling. Of course, if you don't have the money, that's a different story. Right. But it is very interesting how that works, and I'm very, very pleased that you do that. And now going to your plans for repertory for Placer Repertory Theater. Okay. What are your plans for the rest of the year?
Okay, so 2023-2024 season, we've previously been in calendar seasons. So we were doing local community events like Rockland's anniversary, and we performed at that, and we were performing at the Colfax Railroad Days. So we do those kinds of events. In fact, we'll be this November going to be doing an event in for the Rockland Historical Society, where we're going to be performing scenes that contain a lot of local history for a history talk. So we've been doing those kinds of things, waiting for a season to open. So it just opened with Uncle Vanya, and then
that was great. I saw it.
Thank you. And then from Uncle Vanya, we are working on a solo show, My Jekyll and Hyde, for a season. I should. Well, so how to describe this? Well, I have 3 seasons. We have the theatrical season. So we're doing My Jekyll and Hyde for the theatrical season. It'll probably open in November. We're negotiating for a particular venue right now, so I can't give you dates. And then we have our annual Placer Rep annual holiday party. We'll have that. And then in February, we will open Frankenstein. It's the original melodrama. And then
it's a must-see.
Yes, and then in April, it's the melodrama. So it's Frankenstein, or The Man and the Monster, with an exclamation point. Isn't that wonderful? And then we're going to presentational theater, where we're going to do Conan Doyle's Sherlock Holmes, The Speckled Band. He wrote the play himself in the early 1900s. And so what we're doing is, we had been working for 6 months on Stanislavski technique and applying it to Uncle Vanya, and then we presented Uncle Vanya. So now taking realism, Stanislavski technique, as the core for Studium Practicum, which is our professional growth, continuing education and training program for our company members and affiliates.
What's your website, before we forget?
That's placerrep.org. PLACERREP.org. So when okay, no, lost my place.
Sorry to have interrupted you.
Sorry. So this is what I'm doing this whole year, is based in what Studium Practicum, they're learning a particular curriculum. They're learning styles acting. And so we're going to learn performance art, voice for the actor, movement for the actors next with My Jekyll and Hyde. And then they're learning melodrama with Frankenstein, and then they're learning presentational theater form with Sherlock Holmes piece. And all of this is going to be done with a mind to minimizing our budgets this year, because we are currently working to raise the money for a more lavish season in 24-25.
How do you raise funds? I have to say, do you go to individuals, you get grants, a combination of both, or?
Right.
And of course, I know you do collaboration events every month.
Every month we have collaboration lab. Yeah, we have a variety of programs. We have 4 program areas, which is, I think we should speak to, and there is a slide that we can put up. 4 program areas. The first one is talent development. So we're in this area that's naive to professional theater. So we have to develop our talent pool. And so talent development has classes, it has events that are interactive theater related, or collaboration lab where people can get up to on the open stage and show their talent. And then as the artistic director, I'm able to see people coming through and, invite this person to try one of our classes or train with us, and hope to grow the talent pool. Right. But it gives people an opportunity to get their feet wet.
That's right.
And that helps also early career people or people coming out of pre-professional programs to bridge the gap from community theater and pre-professional, starting to get their feet wet in professional theater and seeing what that's like. Then we have our professional growth programs. So that under that banner, professional growth programs, is Placer Rep Presents, which is all of our events and performances. Every opportunity professionals have to get more professional experience. Also, though, is Studium Practicum, our mentorship, internship, and employment programs, those kinds of things.
That's wonderful.
And then we have 2 other program areas: community and economic enrichment, which is everything from our locals first policy, where I am stirring the local economy. We have artist and resource lending programs. We have all of our education outreach. So everything I do for K-12 schools and colleges is under that banner. And even touring shows would be under that banner, because we're not trying to be a touring company, we're trying to attract the eyes back to Placer County. And when people come to see us, just like with Sierra Rep, people go see Sierra Rep and then they go to the local museums and they go to the local community theater and they go to the restaurants. And so, Tuolumne County enjoys all this revenue from people from San Francisco running to go see something at Sierra Rep. And so that's the kind of thing Placer Rep is building. And so the final area is, right, Placer Rep Access for All. It's PRAA, PRAY, or Placer Rep Access for All. And basically, theater's denied to no one. So
that's wonderful.
We make sure that they can see a show. If they don't have the funds, we get them a free seat, or there's a free performance, or we can provide scholarships to students who want to take our classes, that kind of thing.
That's amazing. Now, tell us about venue. That's always an issue.
Yes, it is.
Always a problem.
So these are our 2 things we need, right? We need funds for the coming season, and we need a venue of our own. And the reason I say that is because when you spoke about revenue streams, yes, we write grants, yes, we write sponsorship apps, yes, we get major donors and minor donors, and we have patronage, which provides revenue and donations. But if we had a venue, if we could find a black box, 2,000 square feet. So if you got a barn, you got a light, a light industrial space you're not using, or you've got a big empty room that you don't use in your facility, or you don't use it at night or something, that we could turn into a black box, that would be fantastic. Or if you have $60,000 a year for 3 years and want to sponsor us into a commercial space, that would be great.
Absolutely. Go to the website and message
placerrep.org. Because why that's important is because there are so many revenue streams once you have your own facility. In the meantime, I'm paying $1,200 to $2,000 a night for a venue, and when my rent would be $3,000 a month, and so imagine running a show for 2 weekends, it's $12,000 for me. So that's the amount of money I have to raise.
Right.
And then it's another $10K for the actors and technicians and whatnot. So I'm having to raise $25,000, $30,000 every time we want to do a proper show in a proper venue. And
that's important. We got to get a venue for the
so if I have a venue,
theater.
We can be performing every night. We can be offering classes in the afternoons. We can even have a lunchtime cafe with performers, and do a little bistro thing. And there's so many things we could do to drive revenue. with a space. That I can't get a beer and wine license really without a space. I mean, you could do it for an event.
Per event,
and
but that's
not the same thing
costly
because
and laborious.
Right. I want to plug people like Tamarloo Studios and Lone Buffalo Vineyards, these people who support us, Western Care Construction, because I can get deals with, for instance, Lone Buffalo, where I can be selling their wines, donated or at wholesale, and so I am able to sell the wine glass for the retail price, and that's additional dollars for Placer Rep. That's the kind of thing I can't do in a day-only event that I can only do when I have a facility.
Absolutely. I'm really pleased we talked about that because that's your lifeline. You need a venue, and the revenues are kind of tied to the venue, as you explained so well. Now let's go to a subject that I'm also really, really interested in. We only have a few minutes to go, but it's so important.
Okay.
And I came to this community and I noticed that there isn't a lot of diversity. And I come as a globetrotter, and somebody was completely multinational. I have Middle Eastern, Portuguese, and I have West African blood from Guinea-Bissau. And so when I come to a place like this, I'm like, where are the people who look like me, and how do we represent them in theater? So what is your approach to that, and where do we go?
Well, I have a background of what I mostly did was theater for underrepresented and underserved populations. So Indigenous and Japanese and Chinese and Pacific Islander and Hispanic, Latino theater, and some what at the time was called East Indian, which is now called South Asian. So I was doing solo work. I was doing productions that toured, and mostly working with people whose voices weren't typically heard. So I came to this county, and the statistics, for one thing, there's not a lot of diversity in the county because Caucasians are approximately 83% of the county. So you have something like 1-2% African American. You do have some Asian and Pacific Islander, and you do have a little, you have more Hispanics than you would know. They are dispersed, and so they're a tiny percent of each population within each town, but statistically more significant than you would think at a county level. Anyway, so what I've always done is best soul for the role. So if I'm directing something for a mainstream theater company, Oakland Lyric Opera or something, or the Magic or whatever, I am looking for who can portray this character most honestly.
The best actor,
and I don't
wins
care
every time, and it should be the foundational and the basis for choosing the actor, regardless of what color has been portrayed in the past.
Right, and but more than that, one has to reach out, and one has to make oneself somebody who can be trusted. Equity is an interesting problem because I recently heard of a woman in visual arts who created a program and then nobody came. It was targeted toward a particular ethnicity, but she had not invested in or reached out to that community. And so you have to get to know that community, its pain points, its needs. If you're going to do a piece of ethnic theater, you're going to do a piece of you're going to offer a program that's for a particular population, and that could be short people, or it could be African Americans, or it could be people who are blind. It could be anything, whatever it is. You need to know who you're serving, and you need to know what they need,
and you need to go to them
and work with them on that to deliver the right thing. Then they will come. You have built their trust with them.
Absolutely.
And so when and if we do ethnic theater, it will be because I have an integrated board and I have an integrated advisory board, and I have been working to penetrate these communities that aren't often heard from. So it's
a work that needs to be done. I have some experience starting nonprofits, and in the Dallas area we started a charter school, and I was the diversity chairperson. So what I did, I went to African American churches, I went to Asian communities, and I interacted with the people that were writing their news, and that helped to diversify that charter school, which is one of the most successful in the United States. You know, we started with one school in a warehouse, and now they have 45 schools. So
Right.
it is a success story, and it sums up what you've just been talking about, which is reaching out, using compassion, empathy, etc. Let's close very quickly with
Okay.
what matters most. In a couple of words, what do you think matters most?
Connection.
Very good. I really appreciate you coming today to our show, Tess, and come back again. It's always a pleasure to have you.
Very kind.
Absolutely. And we come to the end of one more edition of What Matters Most. Come back next time and watch us, and we thank our audience members, and we thank Phil Jack, who is our producer here and is wonderful, and Tess Forsyth. Thank you so much for coming to the show today, and we'll see you next time.